Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing fantastic and that you're all having a great day. Hope you're all remembering to take care of yourself. Hope you're all remembering to drink water. It's very important. You might think it's not, but it is. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. It is a free and easy way to support the channel. Very big thank you to everyone who's been watching for years. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. We're apparently, there's a question mark there. We're apparently back on the optimism train. You might remember a couple weeks ago, everyone was not on the same train. And then for some reason, the last couple of videos, we have a lot of analysts who believe that now is the time when the market's going to go bananas. I'm not sure what the shift is. I understand it in that the speculation is US dollar printing, Chinese quantitative easing, European Central Bank lowering interest rates, America lowering interest rates, that kind of thing. But for some reason, all of that is translating into like monstrous, crazy cryptocurrency price growth. You know, I'm not knocking it. It's nice to see it. It's just sometimes the sentiment within this market shifts so quickly. I don't know if people are just lying or like what exactly is going on, because there's never thus far been a reason to actually be bearish on any part of the market. Most people become negative whenever like the prices go down. Yeah, prices go down for every market, but then they also go back up. So, yeah. In very popular news, Jack Mallers, the CEO of Strike, has stated that Bitcoin holds significant potential for value appreciation in the coming period. Jack Mallers, if I remember correctly, is the one he's the guy who stood on stage with the president of El Salvador. I think he was the one who announced that Bitcoin was going to become legal tender in El Salvador. So I know he's known for other things, but when I think of the name like Jack Mallers, like I think of him like crying on stage talking about Bitcoin. That's the thing that's like, you know, in my brain. In an interview in New York, Mallers emphasized that Bitcoin could compete with traditional investment assets such as real estate, gold, and art due to its value preservation feature. I don't know if you, I'm sure many people forgot. Do any of you remember what the CEO of BlackRock said about Bitcoin and real estate? For those of you who weren't here, this must have been November. October, November, somewhere around there. Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, stated he thinks that Bitcoin in the next couple of years, I think he gave like a decade or less. He said the entire valuation, if I remember correctly, the entire valuation of real estate within the United States is roughly around $50 trillion. $50 trillion. He said Bitcoin's going to surpass that. He said like Bitcoin's market cap alone will easily pass by a $50 trillion valuation. And I was like, whoa. And also that's one of those things that like, I don't care for the fact that all these institutions are buying up as much Bitcoin as possible. However, I wish that people listened to things like that to really understand that like, it's game on, like it's game time. Like normal people got to start paying attention because they're buying up all the stuff for that's He reminded the audience that the total asset value worldwide, so there's different numbers, and I'll give you his and I'll tell you what people say. I'm sure you've heard of the M1, the M2, and the M3 money supply. There's also an idea of what's the word? Like how much money there is worldwide and also in assets. He reminded the audience that the total asset value worldwide is around 900 trillion US dollars, suggesting that Bitcoin could increase its current market value of $1.5 trillion exponentially. Jack Mallers is like a high grade level Bitcoin maximalist. He doesn't like Bitcoin. He's obsessed with Bitcoin. He's around the same exact level as Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey being the former creator, the creator of Twitter, former CEO. Jack Dorsey, much like Jack Mallers, they pretty much believe that Bitcoin's, once again, they believe that Bitcoin's going to be the only coin, that other coins will basically have to submit. The coin's valuations will go down. Bitcoin's value will keep going higher. The altcoins won't go any higher. The money that's in these altcoins will begin to shift into Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price goes higher. People realize that they, and I air quote here, made a mistake. Got to buy more Bitcoin. The loop continues going on forever. This is also one of the narratives that we've been hearing about Bitcoin and gold. The idea is that we've already seen there have been a number of companies who have been selling off their gold or their paper gold, their gold certificates, and have put that money into Bitcoin. There's a couple of hedge funds, they were in the news about a year or two ago who were doing it. And if you also missed the other news, one of the larger cryptocurrency companies made a proposition basically for how the United States can acquire a large amount of Bitcoin without having to be a burden to taxpayers. And their idea was that the U.S. is sitting on, was it $700 billion worth of gold or something like that? And if they just sold a teeny weeny little bit of their gold, they'd be able to buy up all the Bitcoin that they wanted to, either in one fell swoop or over the course of 5 years. One of the four, so if you missed one of the other videos as well, when I was talking about Andreas Antonopoulos is probably the first person who I was really listening to in this space when I was still trying to learn about it. And as I mentioned it in another recent video, everything that man has mentioned or said before in the past has come true. Not like partially, no, completely has come true. We're still in the beginning middle stages. He predicted years ago that basically what we would see from here is that nation states would begin to accumulate and mine Bitcoin. Check. The next part basically is like a domino effect of everyone else realizing that they need to do the exact same thing just in case Bitcoin does take off. Check. The other part basically being is that as these other countries get into it and more countries, more companies do as well, they would basically, we would see Bitcoin's price rising accordingly. At that point, he was saying that we would see other assets begin to crumble next to Bitcoin. That's the narrative about gold. If Bitcoin goes over $800,000, $900,000 per coin, we've surpassed the entire valuation of gold. Therefore, people who are really holding on to gold, they'll go, wait, gold has doubled in price. Bitcoin has gone up by 8 million%. I could have gotten in when it was $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $385,000. It's now at $1 million. Let me sell off some of my gold to get this digital gold. As they begin to sell off their gold, gold's prices goes down, Bitcoin's price goes up. And so here's the maximalisty of all the maximalist ideas. This was also said by Andreas Antonopoulos. And once again, 10 to 15, 20 years, I can, okay. He said the last step basically is the liquidation of all other assets. And it kind of goes like this. If you see Bitcoin at 100K, you go, okay, cool, whatever. You see Bitcoin at 1 million, you realize it's completely out of your reach right now. So between the FOMO from normal people getting in, and also institutions pushing up Bitcoin to $1 million. It then has staying power. Bitcoin goes to $12 million per coin. People realize that their other assets didn't and aren't performing as well as Bitcoin, so they begin to sell off portions of things. The claim from the maximalists is, at some point you'll have a corporation who owns 15,000 apartments, and they'll say, we got to sell 500 apartments so that we can buy some Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price goes up. Other companies do the same. Other places begin to print more money to push further into Bitcoin. The problem is that by the time this begins to pick up steam, it'll be around 2032, 2033. And the amount of Bitcoin that comes out of the machine is just in Satoshis. There's no longer a full entire Bitcoin. That then accelerates to everyone else being like, well, Bitcoin's a great store of value, so I want my paycheck in Bitcoin. I want this in Bitcoin. Everything continues going into Bitcoin. And then we end up seeing basically, deflation in the form of Bitcoin, in that other assets related to Bitcoin's price begin to basically deflate. So the home that you wanted to buy that was $800,000 relative to Bitcoin is now only $650,000 US for the actual house as Bitcoin's value goes up. You're then more incentivized to hold on to Bitcoin than any other asset. Other assets begin to completely pour all their money into more and more Bitcoin. Bitcoin hits $100 million per coin. You get it. But this is, and I'll say it this way. When I was first learning about everything in this market, I take things for what they are. Sometimes things do sound insane. And I remember listening being like, are these people serious? There's never, Bitcoin's far too, decentralized and all these other things for any government to ever even think about owning any of it. I assumed in the early days that this was like I use the word revolution light here, but this was like a thing just for normal people. Side note, it is, but I thought that only we would be accumulating crypto. To see that everything these people have said come true has been frightening, because if it continues in that direction, you will need crypto to have any kind of a positive economic future, like a really, really good economic future. If we end up hitting these valuations of a $38 million Bitcoin, the implications are, if you don't hold Bitcoin, if you don't hold crypto, you're left behind in the dust. If the value keeps on going up and everyone keeps selling their other assets, well, then there's only Bitcoin. This is, once again, 15 to 20 years. I'm waiting for 2033 to see how bananas things are. But 15 to 20 years is the time frame, if I remember correctly, where Bitcoin should be, it. Mallers remarked that Bitcoin's most formidable strength in the future will be its role as a store of value. He pointed out that more people are starting to prefer cryptocurrencies over traditional investments. Mallers highlighted that Bitcoin is more accessible and flexible compared to long-term investments like gold and real estate. And it is. The problem is that Bitcoin is not only open 24 hours a day, Bitcoin is exceptionally liquid. If you can buy or sell it any time that you want, and we only have, it's less than 5% of people on the planet are even into crypto. If we get 1.5 billion people into this market, the liquidity rises even higher. Real estate is liquid, but the process takes time. Between you actually I want to sell this, you contacting an agent, you getting the whole thing done. Same exact thing with gold. Everything takes a while, but Bitcoin is, everyone has access to it, and it's incredibly flexible. It can be divvied up. You can't just sell one room in your home, but you can sell fragments of Bitcoin. It's really interesting. He underscored that Bitcoin's current market value of 1.5 Bitcoin's market value is 1.5 trillion. That's the craziest thing I've read. 1.5. Do you understand how much money that is? I think it eludes me as well. It's not something I think about every single day. Bitcoin has over $1 trillion market cap. Bitcoin's market cap is over $1 trillion. Have you ever watched an old documentary? I did. Old documentaries about like wealth in like the early 1900s and like the oil barons and yada, yada, yada. You know, these people had like wealth of like $7 million. Isn't that insane to think about? When you think about like wealth now, like people, of course, are thinking like, you know, like several $100 million and or billions. The idea of $1 billion is crazy. If Bitcoin's market cap was $1 billion, do you understand that Bitcoin's valuation would be larger than like 80-90% of every single company on the planet? At $100 billion, there's only, what was that? A handful of people, a literal handful, who are richer than the actual market cap of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's market cap is $1.5 trillion. How the heck is anyone bearish on this market? It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it at all. When Bitcoin goes to like a $17 trillion market cap, they're going to be people who are going to be like, well, the price fell by 2% today. And I'm going to look at them like they're absolutely insane. What else is worth $1.5 trillion? Oh boy. He stated that Bitcoin could easily rise. He says easily rise to hundreds of trillions, suggesting that Bitcoin could increase its value by 400 to 500 times given the present market opportunities. This is also a rather long article, but I think you get it. This aligns with the other people talking about where they think Bitcoin is going to go. If we see Bitcoin's, do you know how I write it as a title sometimes because I really want your adrenaline to pump so that you really understand what's going on. If all of this works out, this, you know, huge cryptocurrency experiment, if Michael Saylor keeps buying, if MicroStrategy, if MetaPlanet, if the United States keeps buying, if all the states in the United States keep buying, and everything, you know, even just them. Did you hear what I said before? We don't have 1 billion people in this market. All the momentum and crazy stuff you see right now is from the people who got in the last 15 years. It's not like, you know, 38,000 million bajillion people who have, you know, all, you know. Do you understand what it means if you are holding any Bitcoin and the valuation goes up by 400 to 500 times? Do you remember his last point? That guy this was from Fidelity. You might have missed that video. I don't remember when it was. It was definitely 3, 4, 5 months ago. There was and I say price prediction lightly. There was a prediction from this guy from Fidelity who was talking about Bitcoin's current momentum. He's like, no one's really paying attention to what's happening. He's like, once the US starts buying, every other country is going to go completely insane. There will be no Bitcoin left over the counter on crypto exchanges, and people will be fighting over any dust that comes out of like the actual Bitcoin mining process. This man said in the year 2038, he said he wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin was over $1 billion per coin. When I tell you the speed at which I clutched my pearls, because I was like, did he just say $1 billion per Bitcoin? Listen, I'm telling you, I'm trying to inform you. Everything these people said years ago has come true. Some people, and it's kind of like that same exact thing where Mike Novogratz years ago when Bitcoin was like 8,000, he's like, I think Bitcoin's going to 10,000. And people were like, what? Like that, like, yeah, like we know it's going to happen. If we 400 times its current amount, Do you understand how much money that you're going to have? Like, think about it. Like, do you understand the actual implications for how wealthy you will be? This was obviously very popular news, as one might have expected. Mahlers is a very popular person within the space. He hasn't been around for a while. I think, if I remember correctly, I think he's also living in El Salvador. I'm not really sure, but I know he is quite involved in Bitcoinification of the world. But yeah, I just want more people to really get it, because I feel like sometimes people don't got it. That's the Bitcoin's value potentially rising by 400 to 500 times. And yeah, let's move on. In news that I think we're supposed to care about, but it's like water is wet kind of news. El Salvador has been in crypto news a lot more recently, the last couple of months. Apparently, there was a discussion with the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, who basically, like, they loan money to countries in a duress kind of fashion. And basically, recently, as El Salvador announced that Bitcoin was not only legal tender, but that they would also be buying up Bitcoin. It's 1 Bitcoin per day. There was also a news story, and I was like, what? There was a news story that when the dip happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, they bought 5 Bitcoin. I was like, whoa, wow, fantastic. And since then, basically, the news has been that in order to pay off some of their debts or do whatever they were doing, El Salvador apparently made a deal with the IMF to reel in some of their Bitcoin activities. And that became a really big news story because people were like, oh no, what's happening? I can't believe it. Or something like that. But they continued buying Bitcoin, and people were like flabbergasted that it was still happening. So in the news once again today, where are the words? El Salvador's president said the country will keep accumulating Bitcoin. Wow. The IMF's $3.5 billion deal with El Salvador includes Bitcoin-related reforms, one of which, according to the International Monetary Fund, prohibits further accumulation of tokens by the government. Apparently, he said proof of work over proof of whining. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, said Bukele, after the country purchased additional Bitcoin. So, I think the news, like I said, I think we're supposed to care about this. It's kind of like, remember when we got news, it must have been 2 months ago now, that apparently MicroStrategy was going to slow down their purchases of Bitcoin. And then the next day, they announced that they bought more Bitcoin. And I was like, was that them slowing it down? Because they said, like we're taking a pause. And then I was like, well, maybe the pause is happening after this one. And then the next week, they were like, we bought more Bitcoin. And I was like, that wasn't a very lengthy pause. And then, you know what they did next week, right? They then bought more Bitcoin. So I don't know if it was just like a publicity stunt or what we were supposed to have done. But we've known for 2 months now that even after the conversation with the International Monetary Fund, El Salvador is still mining Bitcoin. That's also something that people need to get through their heads, that they're literally mining it to accumulate more. But they purchase at least 1 a day. Some days are 5. One day they did 20. Remember when they did 20 last summer and people were angry? You said only 1. And I was like, you're mad because they bought more with their own money. So apparently proof of work wins over proof of whining. Maybe this has to do like with the Optimism Prime news that we've been getting as of late. If you've been missing it, the last couple of videos, every analyst basically believes that starting from the 25th of March until infinity, that basically like the mega super ultra awesome bull run is going to continue. So maybe that's empowering him in some sort of way of Bitcoin's going to like $1 million. I'm not really sure. That's the El Salvador's president says the country will keep accumulating Bitcoin news because they've been doing it nonstop for the last 2 months. So I'm not really sure how people thought that anything else was going to happen. News. And yeah. Okay. Wow. Amazing. Fantasticals. Let's move on. Also in popular news, and I'm certain this is going to happen, and I'm trying to tell you right now, I don't know the time frame, but believe me, this is going to be crazy. Ripple has announced upcoming features to the XRP ledger aimed at enhancing institutional decentralized finance. Key developments include expanding compliance functions, a new lending protocol that integrates with Ripple payments, and decentralized exchanges, as well as the introduction of multiple purpose tokens, MPTs, for tokenized assets. So let me before I go any further, Ripple and many other companies, but mainly Ripple's talking about this now, are adamant that the tokenization of everything, like we're right on the precipice. The idea is that in the future, people will digitize their diamonds. And so like you kind of like have it on a blockchain so you can like fractionalize art and real estate and self-driving cars, you know, the whole spiel. As far as like the democratization, if you will, decentralization and fragmentalization of finance and assets. Awesome. I mentioned this a couple of days ago. I don't know what the once again, the time frame is, but XRP at some point is going to have DeFi. And I mean like DeFi, like proper, you know, like Ethereum levels of like DeFi. We're probably going to see before the end of this decade, if not sooner, I don't know the speed of these things, we're going to see the possibility of people being able to stake their XRP to make passive income. I just heard someone, you know, suck their teeth and go, that's not going to happen. Well, remember also, on chain, developers are working now for ways for you to be able to stake your Bitcoin. The idea basically being like you'll make Bitcoin more scarce by staking it. You'll do something inside of the protocol, blah, 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 but you'll also be rewarded, ideally, potentially, in another coin and or a stable coin for staking your Bitcoin and, you know, helping out that platform, whatever it actually might be. They're working on the same exact thing for Litecoin. All the coins that are proof of work and or have other functions, like they're working on like being able to stake them. I said this years ago as well. I think this is going to, like that is going to be the thing that causes crypto to really take off. I think the value proposition is wonderful. I think the scarcity is amazing. I think the coin burn is really cool. But when you can tell people just by holding an asset, locking it into a protocol, and it gives you money for free forever, I think that's what the future is actually going. Like, that's what I think it's going to be. I think especially when we start seeing, I think some of them will roll out this year. We'll see. Binance was also working on one. This idea of being able to stake your Bitcoin is going to be massive. And we already have not only a supply shock, but also like a massive liquidity shock happening for Bitcoin because people keep buying it and they're not spending it or using it. It's just like being held somewhere. So, you know, the system is becoming drier. Like, you know, people need more Bitcoin, but there's not a lot for them there. If all this stuff we've been hearing as far as Ripple working with central banks and then putting their central bank digital currencies on top of it, one of the other news stories, it's not here, not that important, is that Ripple apparently is trying to get legal clarity, I believe, from the SEC, like in its entirety, so that they can not only work with banks, but that banks and institutions can also legally begin to acquire XRP within the United States, because apparently it's like dozens of banks and companies who want to acquire it from them. When you're able to hold those coins and stake them, I think it's kind of going to be game over for a lot of other assets. And this is why I think I said this last point. I said this before as well. This is why I think we keep hearing about specific coins over and over and over. Obviously, pay attention to what's happening with these coins. Because big thing, like we keep hearing XRP, we keep hearing Ethereum, we keep hearing Bitcoin. There are other coins like in the pool with them, but we're constantly hearing these coins over and over. So the news basically for this is that they're working on a bunch of new features on the XRP blockchain, yada, 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 so and so and so. The one that stands out the most is the actual like tokenization of other assets, but also the idea of DeFi. I think these are going to be gigantic. What I think, what do you call it? What I think will be the major tipping point, you know, we're going to have like staking and stuff like that on these chains, but I think it's when there's like an ease of it. When you can go to like a crypto exchange, buy 1,000 XRP and then go stake immediately. That's when I think like these, really, that's when I think we'll see like $150 XRP. Like really, really, really. Yeah, cool. It begins. They were talking about doing DeFi stuff for a while. They're working with institutions first, as always. This is what Ripple always does to get the big money. Oh, I'm stretching. My arms hurt. Oh gosh, my back. To get the big money and like the actual liquidity that we need for these ecosystems. But by the end of this year, I think we're going to hear Bitcoin, Litecoin, and XRP staking. Like really, like I think it's going to happen this year. It won't take that long. Anywho, there's a very bright future for this space, and I really want everyone to understand not only how lucky you are, but also how early you are. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.